Welcome back, everyone, to the one place where the darkness always has something to say. I'm your host, and you're watching Mr. Shadow's Stories. Tonight, we're not going into haunted houses. We're not walking through abandoned buildings. No, tonight, we're going somewhere far more dangerous. We're going out onto the road, the long, empty, pitch-black road, the kind of road that stretches for miles without a single light. The kind of road where your phone signal disappears, where the only sound is the hum of your engine and whatever might be lurking just outside your headlights. Tow truck drivers are some of the bravest people you'll ever think about. They drive alone. They work at midnight, at 2 a.m., at 3 a.m., when every sensible person is fast asleep. They pull over in places most of us would never stop. And sometimes they see things. Things they can't explain. Things they wish they could forget. Tonight, I'm bringing you 4 true stories from real overnight tow truck drivers. Stories that were shared in online forums, submitted to horror communities, and passed around in hushed voices among people who work the night shift. These are not fairy tales. These are not fiction. These are real accounts from real people who were just doing their jobs until the night decided to do something back. Get comfortable. Turn off the lights if you're brave enough. And whatever you do, don't go outside alone after this. Let's begin. Story 1. The Woman on Mile Marker 7. This story comes from a driver named Marcus who worked the overnight shift for a roadside assistance company in rural Tennessee. He'd been doing the job for 6 years, and he liked to say that the night never bothered him. He said that right up until the night it did. It was a Tuesday in late October. The rain had been falling since sundown. Not a heavy storm, just that quiet, miserable drizzle that makes everything look gray and ghostly. Marcus got a call around 1:15 in the morning. A woman had broken down on Route 9 near mile marker 7. Engine failure. She was alone. He punched in the coordinates and drove out. The road to mile marker 7 was long and surrounded on both sides by thick trees. No street lights, no other cars, just Marcus, his truck, and the rain. When he pulled up, he saw her immediately. A woman in a white dress, standing beside a dark sedan. No hazard lights, no flashlight, just standing there, perfectly still, in the rain. Marcus thought that was strange. Most people sit inside their cars when it's raining, but he figured she was just relieved to see him, so he climbed out and called over to her. "Hey there, ma'am. I'm from Roadside Rescue. Got your call. Are you okay?" She turned to look at him slowly, and even from 15 feet away, Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a coldness that had nothing to do with the October air. Her face was pale, not just fair-skinned, pale like paper, like chalk, like something that hadn't seen sunlight in a long time. She smiled at him. "I've been waiting," she said. Marcus told himself to calm down. People get scared when they're stranded alone. He walked toward her car, asked for her keys, and started to assess the engine. He popped the hood, checked the basics. The battery looked fine. The alternator looked fine. He frowned. He leaned around the hood and asked, "Ma'am, can you tell me what happened? Did the engine just cut out, or did you hear a noise first?" Silence. He looked up. She was gone. Not walking away, not sitting in the car. Gone, as if she had simply ceased to exist between one breath and the next. Marcus stood there in the rain, completely alone, with the hood of a stranger's car propped open in front of him. He looked up and down the road. Nothing. He shone his flashlight into the trees. Nothing. He walked to the sedan and looked inside. The car was completely empty, but here's the part that made Marcus's skin crawl. The part he still talks about to this day. There was no driver's seat. Not missing, not removed, just not there, like the car had been manufactured without one, like no one was ever supposed to sit behind that wheel. Marcus closed the hood, walked back to his truck, and drove away without looking in his mirrors once. He called dispatch and told them the vehicle had been abandoned with no owner present. Standard procedure. He filed the report and went home. But 3 weeks later, his coworker mentioned a local news story. A woman went missing on Route 9. Her abandoned car was found near mile marker 7. She'd been missing for 11 days before anyone found the car. The disappearance had been reported the night before Marcus got that call.
Story 2. The Passenger I Never Picked Up. This one was submitted by a driver who goes by Ray D online. He drove for a private towing company in northern Michigan, covering long stretches of interstate highway that cut through dense forest. Ray was an experienced driver, calm, practical, not the type to imagine things. He'd spent 4 years on overnight shifts and genuinely enjoyed the solitude. He used to say the highway at night felt like his own personal world. He stopped saying that after what happened in November of 2019. It was just past 2 a.m. when he got a call. A vehicle had broken down on Interstate 75 about 30 miles north of the nearest town. The caller, a man, said his truck had blown a tire and he needed a tow to the nearest service station. Ray drove out. The interstate was completely deserted. Miles and miles of nothing but dark road and the shadows of trees pressing in from both sides. He found the truck, a beat-up blue pickup pulled over onto the shoulder with its hazards blinking. Ray parked behind it, climbed out, and walked up to the driver's window. Empty. He checked the cab. Empty. He walked around the vehicle. Nobody was crouching beside it. Nobody was standing in the nearby tree line. He called the number that had been used to place the original call. Straight to voicemail. Ray figured the guy had maybe gotten a ride from a passing driver. It happens. He hooked up the blue pickup and began the slow drive back toward town with it trailing behind him. About 10 miles down the road, he glanced in his rearview mirror. Someone was sitting in the bed of the pickup he was towing. Ray's heart dropped into his stomach. He could see the figure clearly in the red glow of his brake lights, a man sitting upright in the truck bed, facing forward, just sitting there, motionless, staring straight ahead. Ray told himself it was the original caller. The guy had been hiding, maybe spooked by something, and climbed back into his own truck. Weird, but possible. He pulled over, climbed out, and walked back to the towed pickup. Nobody there. The truck bed was empty. The cab was empty. Every door was still locked. Ray stood on that empty highway with his hands shaking, telling himself it was a trick of the light, a shadow. His tired eyes are playing games with him. He got back in his truck and started driving. 2 miles later, he checked the mirror again. The figure was back. Same position, same stillness, head tilted just slightly to the right this time, like it was curious about something. Ray did not pull over again. He drove to the service station at exactly 11 miles per hour over the speed limit and dropped the pickup in the lot without unhooking it properly. He drove home, called his supervisor, and told him the truck was at the station. He never went back for his equipment. He quit the job the following week. He wrote in his post online, "I don't know what was sitting in that truck bed, but whatever it was, it knew I could see it, and I think it wanted me to stop."
Story 3. The address that doesn't exist. This story comes from Dana, a woman who worked overnight dispatch and occasionally drove for a small towing operation in rural Georgia. She was covering a shift for a colleague when this happened. The call came in at 3:33 a.m. She remembered the time precisely because she always noticed patterns. A man on the phone gave her an address on a road called Hollow Creek Lane and asked for a tow to a garage about 5 miles away. His voice was flat and quiet, almost like he was reading from a script. He gave the address, repeated it once without being asked, and then the line went dead. Dana typed the address into the dispatch system. It came up. She map-quested it. This was 2009, so that's what people used. It showed a road. She printed the directions and drove out. Hollow Creek Lane was a narrow, unpaved road she'd never driven before. It was surrounded by dense Georgia pine forest, and her headlights barely cut through the blackness. She drove slowly, watching the mailboxes for the right number. She found the address. There was a car parked in the gravel driveway of a small, dark house, no lights on inside, no movement. She honked twice, waited, then climbed out. She knocked on the door. Nothing. She knocked again, louder. The door swung open, not from her knock, just opened, smoothly and silently, like it had been waiting for her knock as an excuse. The inside of the house was completely empty. No furniture, no pictures on the walls, no rugs on the floor, just bare wooden boards and darkness. And standing in the middle of the empty room, half in shadow, was a man. He was tall, wearing dark clothing, and he was staring directly at her. Dana took a step back. "Sir, I'm here for the tow," she said, hating how small her voice sounded. The man didn't move for a long time. Then he said, very quietly, "You shouldn't be here." Dana turned around and walked to her truck fast, not running. She forced herself not to run because some instinct told her that running would change something fundamental about the situation. She climbed in, locked the doors, and started the engine. She drove straight back to the depot. In the morning, she told her supervisor about Hollow Creek Lane and looked it up again to file the report. There was no Hollow Creek Lane in the county database, no record of the road in any directory. The address she had printed directions to, the address that had shown up on MapQuest the night before, returned 0 results. She drove back out in the daylight with her supervisor to find it. They found the turnoff. They drove down the gravel road. The house was there. The car was gone. But on the front door, written in what looked like black marker, were 5 words, "I told you to leave." Story 4. The Last Stop on Route 44. Our final story tonight comes from a veteran driver named Thomas, who spent over a decade working overnight tow jobs in rural Pennsylvania. He submitted this account to a truckers forum in 2021, and it remains one of the most discussed horror stories in the overnight driving community. Thomas described himself as a skeptic, a practical man. He believed in what he could see, touch, and explain.
Ghosts, he used to say, were just overactive imaginations and too much coffee. After Route 44, he stopped saying that too. It was a Friday night in February, deep winter, with temperatures below freezing and a thin layer of ice on every road surface. Dangerous conditions. Thomas had already handled 3 calls that night and was heading back toward the depot when his radio crackled. Dispatch had one more. A stranded motorist on Route 44, about 8 miles east. The caller said his car had skidded off the road and was stuck in a ditch. Male voice, calm, no injuries reported. Thomas turned around and drove out. Route 44 in that part of Pennsylvania is a long, winding road through farmland and old forest. In the winter, it feels like the loneliest road in the world. Thomas drove those 8 miles without seeing a single other vehicle. He found the car exactly where dispatch said it would be, a silver station wagon tilted nose down in a ditch off the right shoulder. He parked, got out, crunched across the frozen ground, and looked in the driver's window. The man inside was unconscious. Thomas called 911 immediately. While he waited for the ambulance, he tried the door. It was unlocked. He opened it and checked the man's pulse, strong and steady. He appeared to be in his 50s, well-dressed, with no visible injuries. He couldn't figure out why he was unconscious. Then he noticed his hands. They were placed neatly on his lap, folded like someone had arranged them, and his seatbelt was buckled backwards with the clip on the outside and the strap running behind him, threading through the seat in a way that was physically impossible without taking the seat apart. Thomas stepped back. He looked at the surrounding road. The ice told a story. Tire tracks were leading from the road into the ditch, sure enough, but there were also footprints around the car, multiple sets coming from the tree line, standing around the vehicle, and then going back to the tree line. The ambulance arrived. The paramedics worked on the man and couldn't explain the unconsciousness either. No head trauma, no carbon monoxide, no medical episode they could identify. He was transported to the hospital. Thomas gave his statement to the police officer on scene, mentioning the footprints. The officer looked at them, frowned, and said the same thing Thomas was already thinking. The footprints only went in 2 directions, from the trees to the car and back to the trees. None of them led away from the scene in any other direction. Whatever or whoever had been standing around that car had gone back into the forest. Thomas asked the police officer if there were homes or structures in those woods. The officer was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "There used to be. They were condemned about 20 years ago. Nobody's lived out here since." Thomas filed his report, drove back to the depot, and handed in his notice the next morning. He wrote in his forum post, "I've been on dark roads my whole life. I've handled accidents, breakdowns, rollovers, and everything in between, but I know what I saw that night. Something came out of those woods and arranged that man while he slept. And the only reason I can sleep at all is that whatever it was, it didn't care about me. That night, at least." 4 drivers, 4 nights, 4 encounters that changed the way these people understood the world around them. Here's something worth thinking about, and I mean this seriously. These drivers were all experienced professionals. They were calm, practical people who had spent years working the night shift. They weren't looking for ghost stories. They weren't trying to get famous. They were just doing their jobs. And yet the night found them anyway. There's an old piece of wisdom among people who work after midnight, and it goes something like this. The road doesn't care about your schedule. The darkness doesn't care about your logic. And whatever lives in the spaces between the lights, it has been there far longer than any of us. Drive safely, friends. Keep your doors locked. And if someone or something is standing perfectly still on an empty road at 3 in the morning, keep driving. That's all for tonight here on Mr. Shadow's Stories. If these stories gave you chills, and I genuinely hope they did, then do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, leave a comment telling me which story scared you the most, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Because I promise you, the stories I have coming up next are even darker, even stranger, and even more difficult to explain away. Every week, we go deeper into the shadows together, and I don't want you to miss a single step of that journey.
Stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the scariest stories aren't the ones that are made up. They're the ones that actually happened. Good night, if you can.